December 18th, 1944, Belgian Ardennes. In the early winter morning, a damaged Sherman tank sat at the edge of a small village road. Its engine compartment emitted a faint column of smoke, a reminder of the fighting that had passed through only moments earlier. Nearby, American soldiers worked with calm coordination, adjusting their positions and preparing for whatever might come next. Across the European front, one principle had shaped nearly every engagement. Armored vehicles were essential to maintaining momentum. When they advanced with the infantry, progress was possible. When they were absent, forward movement became significantly more difficult. This understanding had developed over months of operations in France and Belgium and had become part of everyday military planning. Sherman tanks had been central to Allied strategy. They provided mobility, support, and confidence to the units they accompanied. Their presence influenced how commanders organized their forces, and their reliability formed the foundation of the combined arms doctrine used throughout the campaign. By December 1944, these ideas had been reinforced repeatedly. Infantry units and armored units operated as a coordinated team, each relying on the other. Without that combination, standard procedure dictated a delay or withdrawal until proper support could be restored. Attempting to advance without that support was considered impractical and unnecessarily risky. Yet, during the winter of 1944, long-established expectations were frequently challenged. The conditions of the Ardennes were changing rapidly, and events were beginning to unfold that would place entire units in situations far removed from established doctrine. On that December morning, as cold air drifted through the forested hills and the situation along the front shifted unpredictably, a moment approached that would defy conventional planning and reshape the day's events.
Your name is Curtis Whitmore, 24 years old. Before the war, you were nobody special, just another farm kid from outside Des Moines, Iowa, who knew how to coax life out of dying tractors and jury-rig solutions when parts didn't exist and money was tight. Your father taught you that machinery was just metal and motion, and if you understood both, you could fix anything. The Army recognized that skill. They didn't put you in a tank. They made you the man who kept tanks running. Staff Sergeant, 3rd Armored Division, Maintenance Company. While other men fired guns, you wielded wrenches. While they earned medals storming beaches, you earned calloused hands keeping the division's Shermans operational through Normandy's hell, across France's mud, into Belgium's snow. You loved those tanks like they were your own. Each one had a personality, quirks in the transmission, temperamental starters, engines that needed sweet-talking on cold mornings. You knew every bolt, every gear, every weakness in their design. You'd patched holes from German rounds, replaced blown tracks under artillery fire, rebuilt engines while the front line raged 300 yards away. Your crew called you Tractor, not as an insult, as respect, because you could make anything run, could improvise parts from wreckage, could solve problems that made other mechanics shake their heads and call for factory replacements you didn't have. The war had been moving fast since August. After the breakout from Normandy, the division pushed hard, liberating French towns, chasing Wehrmacht remnants, driving toward Germany itself. By December, everyone felt it. The Germans were beaten. The war would be over by Christmas. Then December 16th came, and the world turned inside out. The Germans launched their last great offensive. Waves of panzers and infantry smashing through the Ardennes, targeting the weakest part of the Allied line. In 3 days, they created chaos. Units scattered, supply lines collapsed, entire companies found themselves cut off, surrounded, fighting for survival in frozen forests. Your maintenance unit was supposed to be safe, 15 miles behind the front, in a tiny Belgian village called Rocherath. You had 3 damaged Shermans in various states of repair, a barn converted into a workshop, and a dozen men who could fix anything given time. You didn't get time. December 18th, dawn. German artillery found you first. Shells walked across the village, methodical and brutal. The house next to your barn exploded. The church tower collapsed. By the time you stumbled out of your bunk, half the village was burning. The infantry captain, a kid from Boston you'd shared coffee with the night before, grabbed your arm. His face was white. They've broken through. Panzers, at least a company, coming straight up the road. We've got maybe 2 hours. You looked at your 3 Shermans. One had no engine. One had no transmission. The third had taken a round through the turret ring and couldn't rotate its gun. "Can you get any of them running?" the captain asked. You did the math in your head. To make 1 operational Sherman from 3 wrecks would take a full day, a crane, and parts you didn't have. "No," you said. His expression said everything. Without armor, his infantry company, 200 men armed with rifles and a few bazookas, would have to face German tanks on open ground. The rule was clear. You evacuated. You fell back. You saved what you could and lived to fight another day. But as you watched the captain run toward his men, shouting orders to dig in, something your father once told you surfaced in your mind. "Boy, when the machine you need doesn't exist, you build the one you can." That's when you saw it. The tractor sits in the barn beside your wrecks, a Ford 9N left by the Belgian farmer who fled a week ago. It's small, civilian, designed for plowing fields, not fighting wars. But it runs. Your mind starts working the problem. Armor? You scan the barn. Scrap steel plating torn from the damaged Shermans. Sandbags stacked against the walls. The Sherman with the jammed turret. Its gun can't rotate, but it still fires. "Kowalski!" You grab your assistant mechanic, a Chicago kid who can weld under pressure. "Get the cutting torches. We're building something." He stares at you. Building what? Something angry. You have 90 minutes before German scouts are spotted. The work begins. First, armor. You and Kowalski cut steel plating from the dead Sherman's hull, sheets 2 inches thick, designed to stop small arms fire. You weld them to a wooden frame built around the tractor's frame. It's crude, ugly, a patchwork of metal and desperation, but it covers the driver position and the engine. The tractor groans under the added weight. You adjust the throttle, reinforce the axles with spare tank parts. It moves, slowly, but it moves. Second, firepower. The .30 caliber machine guns from the damaged tanks, you mount 2 on an improvised swivel welded to the frame. The ammunition belts feed from boxes bolted to the side. You test the traverse. It works. But you need more. The Sherman with the jammed turret, its 75mm cannon is still functional, just can't rotate. You make a decision that would get you court-martialed if anyone with sense were watching. You remove the entire gun assembly, 1,000 pounds of steel and death, and secure it to the front of the tractor with welding and prayers. "This is insane," Kowalski says. "Probably," you agree, loading a high-explosive shell into the breech. Sandbags fill every gap. You pile them onto the frame, around the driver's position, creating additional protection. The tractor now weighs nearly 3 tons. Its engine screams in protest, but it moves. 75 minutes since the captain's warning. You climb into the driver's seat, now a cramped metal coffin surrounded by welded steel and sandbags. Visibility is terrible. You have a narrow slit to see through, nothing more. The steering wheel feels wrong in your hands, too light for something this heavy. The machine guns are controlled by improvised triggers rigged to your right. The 75mm cannon, you've welded a lanyard to its firing mechanism, runs back to where you can reach it. You fire up the engine. It coughs, sputters, roars to life. Black smoke belches from the exhaust. The whole contraption shakes and rattles like it's trying to tear itself apart. Does it work? Kowalski shouts over the noise. You don't know. You've built something that shouldn't exist. A tractor wearing a tank skin, armed with a tank's teeth, but with a tractor's heart. We're about to find out, you say. 60 minutes. You drive the thing, you can't call it a tractor anymore, can't call it a tank, out of the barn. Infantry scatter as you rumble past, staring at your creation like you've conjured a demon from scrap metal. The captain runs up. What the hell is that? Armor support, you say. He looks at the welded plates, the sandbags, the Sherman gun jutting from the front like a lance. He's smart enough to see it for what it is, a death trap that might buy his men a few extra minutes. Can you fight in that thing? I can try. You position your improvised vehicle at the village's eastern edge, where the road emerges from the forest. The captain deploys his infantry and buildings on either side, a crossfire position with your tank as the anvil in the center. The waiting is the worst part. You sit in your metal coffin, listening to the engine idle, watching the tree line through your narrow slit. Your hands sweat despite the cold. Every breath tastes like oil and fear. Then you hear them. 30 minutes. Tank engines. The deep, throaty rumble of German panzers, accompanied by the higher whine of half-tracks. They're not trying to be quiet. Why would they? They think they're hitting a supply depot defended by cooks and clerks. The first vehicle emerges from the forest, an SDKF Z251 half-track, packed with German infantry and winter camouflage. Behind it, the angular shape of a Panzer IV. Your heart hammers. A Panzer IV outguns you, out-armors you, out-everything you. If this turns into a straight fight, you lose. But you're not planning a straight fight. You let the half-track advance. It rolls forward, confident, its mounted machine gun sweeping the village. The German infantry inside look bored. This is supposed to be easy. You wait until it's 50 yards away. Then you pull the lanyard. The 75mm cannon erupts. The recoil shoves your tractor backward 3 feet, nearly flipping it. The high-explosive shell hits the half-track dead center. It explodes in a bloom of orange fire, metal shredding, men screaming. The Germans don't understand what just happened. They see a tractor, a farm vehicle, and it just killed a half-track. The Panzer IV's turret swivels toward you, trying to acquire the target, but you're already moving. You gun the tractor's engine, turning sharply. The Panzer's gunner fires. The shell screams past, missing by feet, slamming into a building behind you. You trigger your machine guns. Tracer rounds arc toward the German infantry dismounting from other vehicles. They scatter, diving for cover, trying to understand why they're under fire from something that looks like a farmer's nightmare. The Panzer IV fires again. This time, it hits. The shell punches through your improvised armor on the left side. Metal sprays. The impact throws you against the seat restraints, stunning you. Your left arm goes numb. But the sandbags absorb most of the blast. The shell doesn't fully penetrate. You're still alive. The tractor's still running. You reload the 75mm, a frantic, desperate process that requires you to half stand in the driver's compartment, exposed. German rifles crack. Bullets ping off your armor. One clips your shoulder. You don't feel it yet. The shell slides home. You drop back into the seat, aim through your slit at the Panzer IV's treads, and fire. The shot is perfect. The shell hits the tank's right track, shearing it off. The Panzer IV lurches to a stop, immobilized. But there are more vehicles coming. 2 more half-tracks, another tank. You can't tell what model through the smoke and snow. The infantry captain's men open up from the buildings. Bazookas whoosh. One hits a half-track, stopping it cold. Rifle fire rakes the German infantry. The crossfire is devastating. But the Germans are professionals. They don't break. They return fire, pushing forward, trying to flank your position. You keep moving. The tractor groans and shudders, but it obeys. You traverse from target to target, firing your machine guns and infantry, saving your last 75mm shell for the second tank. It appears through the smoke and snow, a panther. Heavier armor than the Panzer IV. Its gun could punch through your improvised protection like paper. You don't have time to be afraid. You aim at its thinner side armor as it turns and pull the lanyard. The 75mm fires. The shell hits the Panther's flank, penetrates, and the tank brews up. Internal ammunition cooking off, turret lifting slightly as fire belches from every hatch. That breaks them. The German infantry, seeing two tanks destroyed by what looks like a possessed farm vehicle, lose their nerve. They fall back. The half-tracks reverse. Within minutes, the attack collapses. You sit in your tractor, engine still running, surrounded by smoke and burning vehicles. Your left arm throbs. Blood soaks your jacket from the shoulder wound. Every part of you shakes from adrenaline crash. But you're alive. The village is still American. If this story is reaching you, please hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that these forgotten acts of desperate courage deserve to be remembered. We'll return to Kurt's story in just a moment. What you don't know, sitting in your battered tractor tank as medics pull you out and treat your wounds, is that your improvised vehicle has done something far beyond saving one village. The German attack on Rochereth was part of a larger probe testing for weak points in the American line. The command is expected to roll through your position in minutes, then push deeper into Allied territory. Instead, they hit what their after-action reports would describe as unexpected armored resistance. They thought you were a tank. In the smoke and chaos, through winter haze and battlefield confusion, German intelligence reported engaging an American Sherman at Rochereth. They had no idea they'd fought a farmer's tractor wearing salvaged steel. That misidentification changed their attack plan. They diverted additional forces to flank your position, forces that weren't available when the main American counterattack came 2 days later. The delay you caused gave the 3rd Armored Division time to regroup, to position real tanks, to turn the German offensive's northern shoulder. Historians would later argue about the Battle of the Bulge's turning points. They'd discuss Saint-Vith, Bastogne, Patton's relief column. Few would ever hear about Rochereth. Fewer still would learn about a mechanic named Curtis Whitmore who turned desperation into innovation under fire. But the men of that infantry company knew. They saw what you did. They understood that when conventional doctrine failed, when the rules said they were doomed, one man with a welder and an impossible idea had saved their lives. The army didn't know what to do with you. Technically, you'd destroyed army property, cannibalizing 3 damaged Shermans without authorization. You'd also destroyed 2 German tanks and saved 200 American soldiers. Your battalion commander came to see you in the field hospital. He stared at you for a long moment, then said, "Sergeant, I'm supposed to write you up for destruction of government property. Instead, I'm putting you in for a Bronze Star." Then he leaned closer. "But don't ever do anything that crazy again." You would, though, 6 more times before the war ended. Each time your unit found itself outgunned and under-equipped, you'd build something from nothing, mounting aircraft machine guns on jeeps, creating improvised artillery from captured German pieces, once even rigging a flamethrower to a bulldozer when you had to clear a fortified position and had no tanks available. The other mechanics started calling your creations Whitmore Specials. None of them were pretty. All of them worked. You came home in the summer of 1945. No parade, no newspaper headlines. Just a train to Des Moines and a taxi to your father's farm. The Bronze Star sat in a box in your duffel bag. You never wore it. When people asked what you did in the war, you said you fixed tanks. That was true enough. You went back to farming, married a girl from Cedar Rapids, raised 3 kids. For 40 years, you woke up before dawn, worked the land, and went to bed exhausted. The nightmares came less frequently as time passed. You never talked about the tractor. But in 1987, a military historian researching the Battle of the Bulge found an odd reference in German archives, a report mentioning armored resistance at a village called Rockerath, where no American armor was supposed to have been. He started digging. He found the infantry captain's after-action report, then your battalion commander's commendation, then eventually you. When he called, you were 72 years old, retired, spending your days in the same workshop where you'd learned to fix tractors as a boy. At first you didn't want to talk. The war was a long time ago. The men who'd been there, most were dead now. But the historian was persistent. Finally, you invited him to the farm. You told him about that December morning, about the barn and the welding and the desperate mathematics of turning a Ford 9N into something that could fight panzers. You showed him photographs you'd kept hidden in a box, grainy black and white images of your creation that another soldier had snapped before real tanks arrived and your improvised vehicle was stripped for parts. The historian stared at the photos. Did you ever think it might not work? You smiled. Every second I was in it. Then why did you do it? You thought about that. About the captain's face when you said you couldn't fix the Shermans. About 200 men who would have died without some kind of armor support. About your father's voice telling you that when the machine you need doesn't exist, you build the one you can. Because someone had to, you said. The historian published your story in a small military journal. A few veterans magazines picked it up. The army officially recognized your Bronze Star. The citation had been filed wrong in 1945, lost in bureaucratic chaos. You were invited to speak at a tank museum in Ohio. You went once, standing in front of a restored Sherman, surrounded by people who wanted to hear about heroes and glory. You told them the truth, that war isn't about heroes. It's about people doing impossible things because the alternative is unthinkable. That sometimes the difference between living and dying is a man with a wrench and enough desperation to ignore the rules. After your talk, a young soldier approached. He was a mechanic too, working on Abrams tanks in the First Gulf War. He'd read your story and wanted to shake your hand. Did they teach you that in school, the improvisation? You thought about all the army manuals you'd read, all the proper procedures for tank maintenance and repair. None of them had included instructions for converting a tractor into a combat vehicle. They taught me how things were supposed to work. My father taught me what to do when they don't. Curtis Whitmore died in 2003, age 84, at his home in Iowa. His Bronze Star was buried with him. The tractor tank existed for less than 3 hours of combat before being disassembled, its parts redistributed to repair actual Shermans. No physical trace of it remains. But in the archives of the 3rd Armored Division, in the memories of the men who fought at Rockerath, in the official German reports that mistook a farmer's tractor for American armor, the story survives. It survives because it's a reminder that war isn't decided only by the weapons you have, but by the will of the people who wield them. That sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't manufactured in a factory, it's improvised in a barn by a man who understands that metal and motion, combined with desperate courage, can change everything. That when the rules say you're beaten, when doctrine says you should retreat, when everyone believes that armor wins battles and you have no armor, sometimes what you need is one man who learned to fix tractors on an Iowa farm, who understands that machinery is just metal in motion, and who refuses to accept that impossible means impossible. Curtis Whitmore never called himself a hero. He'd laugh if you suggested it. He was just a mechanic who did his job under circumstances that required him to invent a new job entirely. But to the 200 men whose lives he saved on that frozen December morning, he was something more. He was proof that the human spirit, armed with ingenuity and courage, could transform even a tractor into a weapon of war, and in doing so, could hold the line when holding the line meant everything. If this story moved you, please hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this piece of history should not be forgotten. We're dedicated to uncovering the hidden human stories of World War II. If you'd like to join us, subscribe and turn on notifications, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and whether your family has its own stories from the war. Thank you for helping ensure that Curtis Whitmore and the mechanics, welders, and improvised warriors of the greatest generation are not lost to time.